Welcome to season 2, episode 4 of the Positive Impact Podcast, where game recognized game. I'm your host, Terrell Dozier, and my special guest today, been watching this guy grow for a long time, co-founder of Fourth Family, Mr. John Scott. John, talk to me, boy. Tell me how you doing.
Good morning. Blessings, King. Appreciate you. You already know, big fan of yours for a long time and got a tremendous amount of respect for what you do and in front of the scenes and behind the scenes is what I've grown a lot of admiration for you for. So definitely a blessing and happy to be here.
I appreciate it. I mean, we got so much to unpack, so many parallels between Positive Impact and Fourth Family. And I think this is also bigger for the masses of just getting together and being able to have these conversations with one another, right? Not looking down on one another, but being able to talk to one another to see, how we can grow, how we can help the kids. And, I know for both of us, there's a lot of people out there trying to help kids, man, but I really feel like the stuff that you're doing, not just regionally, in the capital region, but now all of a sudden, like taking this thing across the country and being able to take those resources and bring them back to the home team. So first thing I want to do is tell me about how John Scott grew up. Like, let's give the audience a little background on how you grew up. What was the foundation of John Scott?
No, absolutely. It's all about foundation for me. I was blessed to really be raised by the community and have a lot of positive role models. First and foremost, I grew up with my father and my mother, and that was a rare thing in my neighborhood at the time. But my mother's from Harlem and my father is from Florida, so I got the down south hard work ethic mixed with that Harlem hustle. And just was really blessed from an early age to really fall in love with the game and have a lot of positive coaches like who really invested in me. And it was before pre-era, before it was like, what can I get from this kid? It was more so, or even charging every kid. I was able to go to the park or go to the Y or wherever and have the OGs pour into me. And every time I see them now, I thank them. But grew up, was born on First Street and grew up in a lot of the craziness that a lot of people do. But again, having that foundation was key for me, and was blessed to get a scholarship to Albany Academy. And what was interesting about that experience was I went from Hackett Middle School, where at the time it was a lot of crazy stuff going on, and my friends were involved in a lot of negative things. So when I went to Albany Academy, it was like a culture shock. And I really didn't like it at first. I was the only Black kid in my grade. It was just tough for me. I couldn't make friends really quick. But as, time went on and, I started to excel, and in athletics, I started to make some friends. And, one of the things that's really important to me now is it's all about legacy. It's not about, what you did. It's about what you did and did you open the door for more to come behind you. And, to look at Albany Academy, what it's become. Since I left is something that I could really feel proud about, not just from, a basketball perspective and it being a powerhouse since we won, but, kids of color, being in there. And it was something that I never envisioned at the time. And I remember when I graduated, the principal at the time, her name was Carolyn Mason. She was a Harvard grad, but she told me, hey, John, because you did so well here, she pulled me in right before we graduated her office. And I was hoping I didn't do anything to get in trouble, but she's like, because you did so well here athletically and academically, they're going to start letting more Black kids in here. And at 16 or 17 years old, whatever I was at the time, that didn't really resonate with me to understand the magnitude of what that statement really meant. And to come full circle now, and they're a partner and working with Albany Academy. Actually, I got to go over there next week. Is really, that's one of the things I'm most proud about, more so than the basketball accolades. The fact that you opening the door for those that like you, that want to take advantage of the opportunity is something important. So went to Albany Academy, had some success. Was blessed to play for Jeff Rulin at Iona, but unfortunately he got fired my freshman year, and some things went downhill. Got hurt later on. Went to LIU, but I got a lot of good experiences in college and met a lot of great people. So that's one of the things that I tell the youngsters that I work with now is, once you leave your neighborhood, the people that you meet and the experiences you have and opportunities you come across, they're invaluable. So, when people are looking at like, how'd you get, LaMarcus Aldridge to come to the Capital District, or how you do stuff with the NBA? Well, it wasn't by staying on First Street, so going to school and getting those opportunities and meeting those people, those are invaluable experiences. But had college basketball didn't go the way I thought it was at the collegiate level, but I came home and got back into the community. And I don't know how much more you want me to go into it, but the birth of a family didn't happen too much after that.
Right. Nah, I think it's good. And so you kind of went through that, but I want to backtrack and kind of and build this bridge. So you talked about going to Hackett, right? And so, your years at Hackett and kind of built that bridge for Fourth Family, because that's where you met your partner, right? Jaheen Hoke. Did I get his name?
Jaheen. Yep, Jaheen Hoke. Yep.
Oh, yeah, because I don't want him to be mad at me. So
no,
you know what I mean?
He won't be mad at you, mad at me.
So
yeah, we met there.
So that's a foundation of where you're at now. And so, these friendships that you build in middle school, right? But he went to Albany High, right, which is the normal, right, which is the more conventional, traditional route from right, Hackett and Myers, right, in Albany. Right. And then you went to Albany Academy, which, let's face it, right, like that's the white school, right? It's the difference between it's the difference between HBCU and the PWI. So
absolutely.
So I want to ask you this question, like being at Hackett, right, and then you make the decision to go to Academy. Did you get any any pushback or any ridicule from your friends? Like, yo, you going over there with the white boys? Like, and right, if you did, like, how did that impact you at an early age? Because we're influenced by our friends when you're teenagers. Like, friends have the most influence.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, great question. Great question. Well, for me, I was blessed to always kind of be who I am from an early age. So, my right-hand man, God rest his soul, was one of the most revered, street dudes in Albany at the time. So, but we became friends, at YBL and the YMCA. So he was my first friend in life. So our relationship was different than that. So because I was able to not have to be somebody I wasn't, because you knew who my man was, it wasn't so much a thing where I got ridiculed or teased when I went to Albany Academy, because when I was at Hackett, I was in all honors classes. Right. So, I was always the dude like, listen, don't have me around nothing. I'm trying to go to school. I like having fun, this and that. I ain't with all the other stuff. So, I definitely had my times when I got caught up and had to learn, hey, listen, this is the point where you have to make the separation. But I got a lot of support. Now I jealously, wanted to be with a lot of my friends, and it was very tough, but it was a big transition. I mean, people were getting shot in the back of Hackett when I was there. I got poked when I was there, and then we went to Albany Academy, and they have real silverware in the lunchroom. So it was a real culture shock for me at first, but it was one of those things where, I had a lot of support from my inner circle, my family, my coaches. And then when I made that transition, it wasn't like a shocker to anybody. They was John's a smart guy. I was a smart guy at our group.
Absolutely. And so you said something earlier that I think is big, and I definitely want to touch on. We work with so many kids that come from single parent homes. Talk about the impact, right? Because I hate to say that, but it's rare in the inner city, right? That you got both parents in the crib. So talk about like what that did for you compared to friends you might have had that only had one parent in the house. Like, what did you see that the difference was in that type of growing up?
No, I absolutely. And, I think, at least from what I see, I honestly feel like it's better now. I do see more, fathers in the community, engaged and involved in their kids' lives. But, coming up, just what that wasn't the norm, around my way. So, I was blessed. My father was a community guy himself, and, a lot of stuff. He was a high school coach. He was in the YMCA. So I saw how he was a father to a lot of guys. And, me thinking, oh, I'm just him, is really, my father telling the dudes, yo, watch my son, make sure he ain't over there doing nothing stupid, But I grew up with that kind of mentorship. So it was instilled in me at an early age. And it's very important because, just from coaching and being an administrator in the school system for over 10 years, my dealings with kids, when there's both parents involved in a kid's life, it's just more of a foundation. And I've seen the kid a lot of times, it's hard when it's all on one person, and one of the things that I've always been adamant about when you take on a coaching job in the inner city is you have to understand that you're not just coaching.
Right.
And I've got into heated arguments with guys who say, "Oh, I'm just here to coach basketball." You're in the wrong place, because when you're in the inner city, you have to take on those roles, and that's one thing that I take pride in, and that's why I've never went back to Albany Academy, where it would have been very easy, just to sit and coach. But working in the inner city, it's fulfilling. And it's one of the best feelings in the world when you can get those kids across the finish line.
Absolutely, absolutely. So played basketball at Albany Academy, had some success. So talk to me about your basketball experience at Academy. Was you played down low? Was you a big strong guard? Like, talk to me about John Scott's game that got you to Iona. Why, and also tell me why you chose Iona.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where I was always like three inches too short, but what I had the opportunity to do was play with some of the best guys who came out of this area. So it's funny, I was talking with Tiki Maven last night, and I talked to Taylor Battle very, very frequently, and Jimmer and Cheeks. Like, these are my brothers. And at Ublis, there's a lot of guys who had a lot of success at the collegiate level who made me be like, okay, I know I'm verified, because if Jimmer Fredette is my shooting partner and we going back and forth in practice, that boy get National Player of the Year. He's something dangerous. But playing at Albany Academy, it was one of those things where it was the battle of, it wasn't a basketball school when I first got there. So, one of the reasons why, they really have me, my name is kind of revered over there is because, I really pushed for there's stories of me breaking in the gym in the summertime, and having open runs, and, guys is, on skiing trips in the Aspens in the summertime. And I'm like, yeah, we got to get in the gym. We was going to Queensbury. That was our holiday tournament. Guys is going to Florida now, but it's one of those things where I first got there, I was definitely good enough to be on varsity as a freshman, but was on JV, led us in, every statistical category that was possible. Team wasn't very good, but it was a humbling experience for me that I needed, because playing AAU, with a lot of those big names, Academy just worked different. It was a system school, and it was different for me. And, when I got the varsity as a sophomore, I still didn't get a lot of playing time, but I was still averaging more points than guys in the starting five. So you could kind of see it coming. But again, I was more hurt when we lost my sophomore year than the guys that was playing. So going into my junior year, I was like, nah, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. So we had a tight-knit circle of, a great host of high school teammates that I had. And we got as high as, I think, number 2 or number 1 in the state, my junior year before we got upset. But we won the first chip in 20 something years there, and kind of took off from there. But it was one of those, and the introduction of Jim, and really bringing in Nike school, and Frush came over later and took it to another level. It's just a great thing to see how it all started. But I have a special place in my heart for the small group of guys that really started that tradition. And it's a brotherhood, and it's not an easy thing, to get through that school academically, or socially, and I'm proud to say that, on the Fourth Family side, we're working with Albany Academy now, trying to, build out a process and make that more of a smoother transition and diversify the population there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then what made you choose Iona?
So Iona, man, it was one of those things where I was teetering back for a number of different things, but I just really wanted the tutelage. And, it was one of those things where my spot wasn't even promised, when I first got there. I went there and took somebody's. So I remember going into the MAC tournament, Ruling came into my hotel. Actually, no, he brought me into his hotel room, and that's when I realized the head coach rooms looked a lot different than ours. You're a 2-time All-Star in the league, you traveled differently, but Rules is my guy. But basically said, he was really proud of the work that I put in, and that he was gonna build with me the next 3 years, to make me the player that I needed to be. So, it was more so, I had, a couple looks, but Rules is just a guy, and Iona was a story program. I really wanted to play for a coach that, played in the league, because I just knew at one day I wanted to coach. So, every day in practice, unfortunately, even though it was only for 1 year, and then I went to LIU, played for Coach Ferry, who was a great coach as well. But, it was one of those things where every day in practice, though, you know how it is, somebody breaks the game down in such a simple way. And, it's just was going in my mental Rolodex. So, I owe a lot to that man. It's Sam Worthen as well, another legend that we had on this coaching staff.
So, yes, sir. Shout out to Jeff Rulin, Long Island legend. I'm from Long Island, so
yes, sir.
About Jeff Rulin for, heard about all the old stories about him for a long time. So shout out to Jeff Rulin. So you come back to the capital region, and again, I want to build these bridges. So you went and told your story from beginning to Fourth Family, but I went to Hackett and talked about, your friendship with Jakeem and, I'm saying, and how that got to Fourth Family. Now let's talk about you coaching with the City Rocks, right? Mm-hmm. Right, because what happened with the City Rocks is super huge in the development of Fourth Family. So let's talk about how you got involved with the City Rocks, why you wanted to be involved with the City Rocks, and then obviously, I want to talk about and go through your story with Eddie Stanley.
Absolutely. So so I ended up getting hurt, coming home, really being devastated, getting some information from the doctor. He's like, you'll never play ball, and not be in pain again. So, and it's, your back ain't something that you can really, fix. Your back is your back. So when that happened, I was really devastated. But those in my circle was like, hey, you got to stay around the game. You got so much to offer. So, came home and was told Jim, I'm like, hey, listen, I want to get involved in the City Rocks coaching. And, it was one of those things where it was good for me. It was like therapy, because I still had so much to give the game. And, had a lot of success throughout my years, actually, coaching with City Rocks. And, I would take my coaching record, against a lot of people. But long story short, when I came home, it was 2011 when we had a really special team. And, Jakeem, it was interesting that same year. I went down to Atlanta, a couple of times to check a girl I was talking to at the time. And Jakeem was finishing up at Morehouse. Mm-hmm. So we were building at the same time. And he was saying, hey, listen, bro, I'm taking this class, and, I came up with this concept, this idea. And I was like, yo, that's cool. But I was hearing them, but I was in Atlanta. I'm like, listen, man, I'm going to compound. I'm over here, but I was hearing them, but I wasn't. So when I came back, was going through, was still coaching, and we got to the Rumble in the Bronx tournament. Mm. And when I say this year was so special, because everybody was beasting to get the A teams and this and that, and I wanted the B team. So my B team was beating A teams. So we won like 5 nationally qualifying tournaments that just in that summer. It was a beautiful thing. But when we went down to the Rumble, we didn't have much success. We didn't have really good showings. We ended up losing the game. And Eddie actually, on our way back when we were driving up to back up here to Albany, had went and told his people that, we had won. Now we were still in the city. So did I skip anything? Okay. So when we went into I was getting gas, he made the call, boom, boom, boom. We get back up. I take him home. We stopped at Roy's Caribbean, food spot here in Albany. Took him to the crib, said, all right, bro, I'll get with you. And it's crazy thing, he had left his t-shirt in my car, it was like 4 or 5 in the morning. That next morning I got the call that, he had been killed. And, it was devastating, bro. It was one of those things. I was 21 years old at the time, had just came home from dealing with my own stuff. And, this was a kid who was like, was about to play varsity basketball, the freshman, sophomore. He was just one of those kids I could talk to differently. He was my dog. And it was one of those things, even coming back home, I was so mad that we lost. I didn't even want him riding with me because he didn't ride with me down there. He
Yeah.
was beasting to get in my car. And when I got that call, man, it just shook me. And have that conversation, with a mother, that her child is going, is a conversation I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But it was at that moment, just really, when it's just you and whatever your foundation is, God, whatever you believe in. But for me, my faith is the only thing that could really get me through that experience in that time. And I remember being on the stand and actually, telling the jury, we're gonna start this thing called For Family in Eddie's remembrance. And it was just like, you can't, when you get that kind of, when you go through all of that, it's nothing that's going to really stop you from doing what you want to do. So I was in 2011, 2012 saying, we're going to work with the league. We're going to do all this. I was manifesting it and speaking all those things into existence at that time. So like when things happen now, people who've been around, a few people who've been around since then, it's just like, man, this guy was, he was serious. And, that experience is really what propelled me to really get into For Family and take it to the next level.
I love it. I love it, man. I love it. And for those who don't know, explain Fourth Family. Like, what does Fourth Family mean? I love the meaning behind Fourth Family. I think is super dope. Please explain to everybody the meaning behind Fourth Family.
For sure. So I'm gonna give Joaquin his credit because he came up with the name and the concept at Morehouse. But basically, it's based off like an old African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child, and your first family would be if we was brothers, living in the same house, grew up together. Your second family would be if we was cousins, you really close cousins. I got some first cousins that's like brothers.
Right.
Your third family would be like my teammates that I have that I still talk to this day. Whether they was at St. Thomas More or at college, wherever we play with them, it's those are your brothers. Every time can go on, when you tap in, they still your brothers. And For Family, we try to be the same thing, just in the community sense. Whatever it is that you're trying to strive to be, we want to assist you in that process. So our mission is to assist those who strive for success, in any way. So, we just try to really be that bridge, that foundation, and that support to help you, get to the next level.
So it's been over 10 years now, you know what I mean? And so from where Fourth Family start, right? Because it has to start with an idea, right? Like it has to start with wanting to make a difference. So I've been doing positive impact for 20 years now. And it started off as an AAU program and it's morphed into what it is right now, right? So I'm sure like I want to do this and then hey, let's add this to it. Let's take this away. And then and so talk about the journey of Fourth Family from 2011 and bring it current right now.
It's been incredible, man. And me and Joaquin talk about it all the time. And it's one of those things where you still have, I gotta, when you submerge yourself in the work so much, you never really take a step back to appreciate, how far you've come. And, I'm definitely guilty of that. I don't take, too much time to reflect as I should. But I just got into this, as we were just talking about, as really therapy. I wasn't thinking about a grant. I would think to this day we're still gonna do our first fundraiser in 2023, but that just lets you know that's not the intentions of what we got into it for. And I'm from the neighborhood, and I'm from where a lot of people choose to do different things. So we got accused of For Family being the front and all of this other anything you could imagine. I've heard, and that's just real talk, but I laugh and I chuckle because it lets me know that what we're doing is so real and authentic, and that some people can't believe it. And it was like that for a while until we really started getting to the place where we started getting contracts with the school district and getting other stamps from outside of here, unfortunately, that made people here in my own backyard finally start believing. So that was when the whole mantra of a prophet is never loved in his hometown. It was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow because there was a lot of people who seen me lose these kids in the street, whether it was, Eddie, Fuquan, or my kid Mo. I could go on. And, every time I lost another one, I was just taken into another gear. And for those who were around me and essentially just didn't believe or didn't see the potential, it hurt at first, because it's coming from, your day ones or people that, you come from the sandbox with. But it's amazing, when you start traveling the country, and I could go to, LA or Chicago, Atlanta, Baltimore, Philly, and I'm in the trenches, and it's, yo, this is amazing. Like Larry Fitzgerald was just giving it up better, a couple of weeks ago at the Super Bowl than, my man who's been with me, since grade school. But that's how it is, and that's a lesson that I would preach to a lot of people who are trying to get into building their own thing. That you got to understand that comes with the territory, and just charge it to the game. You can't take it personal.
You definitely can't. And I've had to go through that, myself, and it does hurt, right? But if you're doing it for the right reasons, you take that pill, you swallow it, and you do keep going, right? And it is crazy how people outside of your circle and outside of your environment take to you and the ideas that you do, right? And like, so like, what's a front? Like, what I mean? And we can do a whole 45 minutes on just that subject.
Right.
Crabs in the barrel. We could talk about all of that, but you know what I mean? But I think, like, the work that, that you putting in is truly authentic. And I think anytime that you're trying to help kids,
right,
it shines through. So
right.
But talk about, but like, we're also one person, right? So like, while we feel like we can save the world, and that's really what it is, right? The ideas in your head and the ideas in your heart, and you really feel like every idea I come up with, I think is a great idea,
right?
Until somebody says that it's not, right? And so
right.
I think the one thing is, when you get with these kids, in the schools, right? After school, during school, right? That you're making a difference. And I've always said, if I ever got the money or the funding that some of these United Ways and what I could do, because I've done so much.
So little
pocket, I've done so much, I've given so much, but that's not the reason why I started doing it, right? So this thing will always exist whether I got the funding or not, and it does take some time. And I think we live in an era right now where it's a little bit easier to secure funds, right? If you're in New York City, you kind of always got access to it, but outside of it, right? And you figure like you're in the capital region,
right?
But it's a lot of hate in that capital region, man. I feel you. And so it's like, but I'm in Arizona, I'm in Utah, like you said, I'm in Philly. I'm getting this love. I can't get that same where I'm from, and it can't stop you. And I respect the fact that it hasn't stopped you. You feel me? But I want to talk about some of these partnerships, right? Because you've gotten really, really big into the STEM, right? So again, that's one of those things. Hey, I just want to help kids, right? An after school program and stuff like that is easy, right? We understand like the educational gap between African Americans, and minorities, period. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Trying to close those gaps with summer camps and break camps and stuff like that. But I want to talk about how you guys elevated into the STEM area and got with RPI to do that. Like, talk about some of the STEMing program that you guys are doing.
Yeah, so talking back, I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, right? And a part of my journey, going to college, one of my big men was from around this area, and he hit me up and said, "Hey, listen, I'm getting my master's at RPI." And, I brought him down to Albany High at the time. I said, "Hey, listen, these dudes don't got no drop steps, no hook shots. He's about 6'8". I said, "Hey, can you work with him?" And, peeping how, the game of basketball, now he's blonde hair, blue eyed. And, at the time, Albany High had probably about a 46% graduation rate. It was one of those things where the game of basketball being one of those connectors, just seeing how he was able to connect with the kids. And, he was saying some things about, how the lower you are when you post up, just better your center of gravity, the harder it is to push you off the block. We would just sit here, and at one day, I think we got something with this, he really is, the main reason that our STEM program is what it is today, in terms of, how he was able to connect the world of the higher education institution with, the authentic community engagement. And, in 2017, we won the MIT Sports Analytics Conference for best research paper. Him and Dr. Loya, another one of my STEM directors who was also working on their master's at the time, but at RPI, but they both have their doctorates now in biomedical and engineering. She's a professor at Union College. He's now at Fairfield. Before he was at Fairfield, he was getting his postdoc at UPenn, and my man was at Lincoln. So he blonde hair, blue eye at an HBCU. He got to be different. Mm-hmm. And I just really love his heart, and my whole STEM team's heart. I also have a sister out in Philly, Laquana Cook, Dr. Laquana Cook. She played ball at NJIT back in the day, but we really just show kids, how they can use math and science to improve athletic performance. And, starting back then, like we said in 2017, the first kind of big showing we had was with the LaMarcus Aldridge camp. And I remember, really having to go fighting with my guys who was bringing them out here, to do the STEM stuff because nobody understood it. And they were partnered with Wale the rapper, and it's completely different worlds. But by the time the camp came, one of the things that LaMarcus was really blown away by and took to the most was the STEM component. So that was when we kind of all saw like, all right, this has got the potential to do something big. So that's actually the paper that they wrote to win the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. So from that moment, Daryl Morey, who actually hosted that conference, invited us out to NBA Summer League, was like, yo, this is dope. I've never seen this before. And he was like, he wanted us to give a talk. So it was like a conference, one of those side conferences, they have it at Summer League that Rick Carlisle was hosting. And, us, having that Albany connection, I'm letting him know where we're from. He was blown away by the stuff too, but we gave a talk, and the actual guys who are the owners of Summer League, Warren Legary and Albert Hall, they were like, yo, this is incredible. And, we've been at NBA Summer League ever since, running workshops. But shout out to Warren and Albert. They actually hooked me up with some tickets at All-Star. But, it's been beautiful to see how something, again, so authentic and genuine has really helped us grow. So that was just at the time NBA Summer League. Since then, we've been last couple of years, we were able to start working with the junior NBA. And we're really excited about, that partnership because it has us at, all the main marquee events. And then also we're able to work with junior NBA coaches, in other cities that, we want to kind of grow for a family in. So we're really working on that framework now and looking to roll that out in 24. But, one thing that I'll say about us is, you alluded to it earlier, King, is, I'm the most New York City Albany guy you can have, right? With my mother being from Harlem. So I got a lot of people in New York and throughout the whole boroughs, that I really consider family, but y'all have direct access, and us being, outside of there, not only is it hard for the mentality with the crabs in a barrel in a bucket, but it's also hard we don't get all of the things that New York City gets, from a resources standpoint. So us not being an NBA city, it makes it extremely hard and almost impossible to pull off some of the stuff that we do. Just to kind of get in these rooms and then be running the stuff that we're running. So, when we do have the opportunity to do so, I'm like a madman. So, from the junior NBA, we got partnered with Microsoft because we were in Chicago running some programming. Microsoft obviously just ain't the big deal with the league for the next 5-7 years doing some things. But when, our name is not going to be the marquee because we just for family, when you're dealing with the league and Microsoft and all these big corporations, we're an afterthought. But when you actually come to the event and see who's getting the kids, who's running the workshops, then you're like, okay, we got to learn more. And, I've done a horrible job of, marketing and advertising what we do over the, for a very long time. But again, that wasn't my intention initially. So, I had to learn that, that's a big part of, this nonprofit world as well. But, those partnerships developed kind of in synchronicity with one another. And then, we had a great partnership and still do with SC Johnson, which kind of happened before that, which, spurred from Summer League, from somebody looking stuff up. And, that was like my first introduction to how some of these big, corporations really work. And you know, Racine, Wisconsin was a very different place to go to. But that's where SC Johnson's is headquartered, and I got a lot of love for people out there. We were, you know, it's where Karan Butler is from. So you know, there's definitely some of us out there, and then they took us to, you know, introduce us to Chicago as well. So you know, we're still in the kind of, you know, developing stages of all of those partnerships. But it's been amazing to see how we've gotten there already. And you know, the NFL and Wasserman are some other ones that were, you know, steadily developing. We kind of caught the tail end of the season. We had an opportunity to go to Hawaii with the Polynesian High School Football Hall of Fame, which was an amazing experience. And the Super Bowl as well with Larry Fitzgerald's foundation. And you want to talk about, you know, an articulate, you know, guy who's really, you know, just an incredible brother. Larry Fitzgerald he's amazing. And his foundation and the people that he has around him are incredible as well. So, you know, we've just been blessed to really, you know, have, you know, success, but it's come through, like you said, you know, 10 years of hard work, putting that pain in, and, you know, we're just getting started.
No question about it. So as we get ready to wrap this thing up, man, I want to ask you just a few quick hitters about it. So my first one, right, and you're talking about partnership and meeting people. Give me 5 people, dead or alive, that you walk into a conference room and say, I'm going to build and I'm going to learn with these people who I feel like can take myself as an entrepreneur to the next level. Who would those 5 people be? Right, it's a it's a business meeting. John Scott's all-time business meeting. 5.
That's tough. That's tough. That's tough. Well, I'm definitely gonna say, because I'm trying to work getting close to him right now. I'm gonna start with Mark Cuban. Probably somebody from the Rockefeller camp. I don't know if it's gonna be Biggs or Jay or one of them, but you know, probably one of them. The next one's going to throw you off because a lot of people just think of him as, you know, like a civil rights guy. But one of the reasons that people were so scared of his brain power and the things that he could do was because he had a whole plan, you know, to really propel our people economically is Martin Luther King. So I definitely would like to bounce some ideas off that brother. The last 2, I would probably say, what's my man there? I'm drawing a blank. He's the big Jets fan, but he's always on Instagram, doing the business stuff. Short guy, short white guy. Is really passionate, enthusiastic about business.
Gary V.
Joaquin, we bumped with him. Gary V, and then probably the last one. I'm trying to, it's funny because it's hard to think about people that I'm not really trying to get to in real life, because those are the ones I really want. But honestly, probably Bill Gates.
Love it. So, and then are there companies, right? We talked about Microsoft, we talked about SC Johnson, right? Give me 5 companies that you would like to see Fourth Family partnered with. Your dream.
Well, I would definitely like to see, you know, the ones we have now more, you know, a bigger relationship and longer tenured, you know, dealings with them. But man, I'm open, bro. So I would say something like Amazon, you know, like I said, Microsoft is not a bad one. You know, not at all. You know, I'm really trying to would love to build something out with FIFA. We're really trying to develop our soccer side, and shout out to my guy Marlon Glean. He's one of the regional directors down there in Barbados. So you know, looking at the game of soccer and how global it is, you know, I would love to develop something out with FIFA. You know, it's interesting because, you know, we have so many, you know, platforms that we're trying to develop as a people. But I'm really passionate about athletes and entertainers, giving back. So, there's the brothers out in Philly that we partner with, that run the Dash program, in the same, it was started by Music Soul Child's people. In the same way we teach STEM through sports, they teach STEM through music. So one of their mentees is from Live Nation. So that's another, the reason I want to do the Live Nation, deal is because it would allow all of these different, concerts and festivals that they have. The idea is us to run some programming and some activations there. So Live Nation is not so much, big business, but they're definitely a outlet that I would love to partner with. But anything sports, beyond sports, they're out in England. We got recognized by them from a few years ago. Dikembe Mutombo was there at the event. But I would love to develop something with Beyond Sports. They're like the ESPN of over there in England. And something with the music. We did some stuff with Wale some years ago, but I'm all about meeting kids where they're at. So it's not so much when I approach stuff about, so much what I want to do as how can we get to these kids? And I'm really passionate about, bringing people in that are smarter than myself and have an idea of, whether it's fashion, music, sports, what kids are into. So those are a few.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And so the last question that I ask every guest, when it's all said and done, how does John Scott want to be remembered?
It's a great question. Just as a guy that was, solid in every way. One of my favorite, sayings is loyalty brings royalty. And, I like to think of myself as somebody who's, got a big heart and, is somebody who's always trying to, I'll give my last a lot to people, and I think, people don't even know sometimes it'll be my last, right? So I think that, when I had that mentality coming up, I've always try to treat other people the right way. And, everybody, do stupid things as a child and in their youth. But I just want to be remembered as a guy that, had love for his family, had love for his community, and led by example.
Nah, I love it. I love it. Well, this wraps up another episode of the Positive Impact Podcast. John, listen, this conversation was everything that I felt like it was going to be. I'm glad that, we're both in the space of having this, conversation now because of where we're both at in the game. And like I said, having like minds, what I mean? Like, so definitely at some point we talked about those partnerships. Absolutely. Positive Impact and Fourth Family definitely need to do something together, and we'll build on that. We'll build on that. No doubt. So look out for that. But I appreciate you coming on, man, taking time out your busy schedule to talk to an overhead, man. And we will definitely be in touch. And I appreciate you and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Much respect, King. I appreciate you once again having me on. Blessings to you and your family, man. We'll definitely get up soon.
Respect. Yes, sir.